Libyan fighters have launched a final attack on Colonel Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte. Reports say the interim government's troops have now largely taken the city, but they are still meeting pockets of heavy resistance. Hundreds of vehicles are pouring into the outskirts as the city is pounded with heavy shelling. Though thousands of civilians have left Sirte, many more are thought to have remained. The assault comes after Colonel Gaddafi, in an audio message, urged Libyans to resist the interim leaders. Well, for more analysis on the situation in the region, let's go to London now. We'll talk to Sukant Chandan, who's an activist and journalist joining us on the programme. Sukant, very good evening to you. Thanks for being with us again. As a final push is underway to take Sirte, it's a good time, I guess, isn't it, to stand back and recall that NATO joined the campaign under a UN mandate to protect civilians. Already, of course, thousands of lives have been lost. Do you think the intervention was justified?
The intervention was justified if you're, part of the elites of the West, if you're part of the energy companies and the financial institutions and the intelligence services, and all of which, by the way, who swap seats in terms of the executive positions in their different respective companies. But from the part of the global South, of Africa in particular, this has been an absolute disaster. And I think when now China, in this last few days, China and Russia have vetoed the UN resolution, which is a similar program by NATO, which they conduct on Libya, that they want to conduct now on Syria. I think China and Russia have admitted that they were fooled over the resolution 1973 on Libya, and they're not going to be fooled again. So no, this has been a disaster for the global South, including Russia and China. And I've been reading Samir Amin's book called Beyond US Hegemony, printed in 2006. And he makes clear back in 2006 that the war in Iraq, now the war in Libya, and they're trying on Syria, is actually targeted really at China, Russia and India.
Sukant, some people who fled the ongoing violence, we've reported back claiming that NATO's been hitting homes and hospitals. It's not a new accusation. But will the alliance, do you think, ever find itself answering directly for any of those claims?
Well, actually, the AFP have been some of the best newswire on the civilian situation in Sirte, and of course, this is complete. I mean, to call it hypocrisy is to give too much credit to NATO. This is outright state terror to conduct domination and monopolization of Libya's wealth. But actually, now it's really clear to the world, and unfortunately, again, the Western mainstream press is not reporting this. But civilians are clearly targeted there, and you can read it on the AFP newswire, and it's very clear that this is a town which is basically nearly empty of civilians. So much so has the NATO bombing and the offensive by the rebels taken such a toll on the civilians there. But nevertheless, Sirte is still resisting, and also the media have stopped talking about Beni Walid. Basically, the pro-NATO rebels in Libya have given up in taking over Beni Walid, and also just about 60 kilometers east of Tripoli, I think, there's another town that's gone over to Gaddafi's side. So the battle is far from over.
So you say they've given up for Beni Walid. You say we're going to hear more about that then in the coming weeks, coming months maybe, as this drags on. Meantime, NATO's maintaining it will continue its attacks in Libya until the fighting ends. How capable will Libya's new rulers be of leading the country after NATO leaves, whenever that is?
There's no sign whatsoever that NATO is going to leave. NATO has just said that it will intervene even further if the faction amongst the rebels continues the relationship continues to worsen. And it's very clear that for the West and for NATO, their men on the ground is people like Jibril and Jalil. And although they've been in alliance with Belhaj from the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group up till very recently, they much prefer Jibril and Jalil, and they will intend to give Belhaj and his fighters the chop. Whether that's possible is another situation altogether, and also now with President Assad, who's doing the right thing for any leader of the global South, to say, if you touch me, NATO, well, I'm gonna start bombing Israel. I'll get Hezbollah to start bombing Israel, and Iran will target Western interests in the Gulf. This is the only way to face the world bullies, which is NATO.
Yeah, I mean, and more on that. Moscow says that the UN resolution against Syria might open the door now to military action. Do you think we're going to see a repeat in Syria of what we've seen in Libya?
We have to be, that's the global South, has to be again very vigilant, because I think now, I mean, the Financial Times has admitted a few weeks ago that their choice ally in the region now is actually Turkey. So, and the transitional council, so-called, in Syria, which is modeling itself on the pro-NATO council in Libya, are calling openly for a no-fly zone implemented on Syria through the Turks. And the Turkish government is conducting a military exercise in the coming days on the border with Syria. So Turkey is the weak link in the global south. And I think Russia and China and Iran will be looking to put Turkey under manners and to stop Turkey from being the Trojan horse of NATO currently.
Sukan Chand, an activist and journalist, thank you for being on the programme live from London tonight.
Thank you.